All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. So, tonight I tried a little bit something different with the ads to try and eliminate pre rolls. And so, to get those out of the way, I triggered ads ahead of time. So, hopefully, that also puts off the ads for a little bit. We can get rid of some of them up front. And then, that gives us a little bit more streaming time before we actually hit the first set of ads. And hopefully, that eliminates pre rolls as well. So, we're going to try that and see how that worked. All right. Let's see. I hope that makes sense. So before we jump into the stream, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with the partners who are the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. They are Furkan Tokan and Gerboles Inc. And I would also like to thank all the other supporters listed here on the screen. They're a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions, rather. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated and helps me cover expenses, operating expenses, licenses, things like that, having to do with the channel. So thank you very much for that. And I hope it goes without saying that I appreciate each and every one of you viewers, whether you're catching us after the fact on the VOD, or you're catching us live here on Twitch or YouTube. This is designed to be an interactive stream, so feel free to jump into chat, say hello, and we'll have a conversation, right? So, with that said, let's see. Let me just catch up on chat here. Xerox, hello. How's it going? Let's see. Yeah, you just got the set ad. Yeah, so we were trying something different with ads tonight. We'll see how that works out, and we'll see if new folks coming in are getting pre-rolls or not. I really want to try and completely eliminate pre-roll ads, especially on the Twitch side if we can. So, yeah, that's just something that I'm trying out. RCW, how's it going? Good to see you as well. Good evening. Widgeler, hello. How's it going? Good to see you as well. Welcome. All right, so tonight we are going to pick up where we left off on the last stream, which was sort of refactoring our materials. And so we kind of went through a little bit of discussion in terms of how we want to revamp materials, how they're going to be handled, and so forth. And then we kind of came across, well, we need to handle the actual resource handling of materials and loading them up and all that. We hadn't really done that yet. And we want to get all of that logic also out of the material system. So this is really where that should be. And so my initial thought process was, well, maybe we should just move that logic over, but I want to simplify it in the process, and so I'm going to rewrite that logic from scratch and see if we can't make it a lot simpler than it used to be. All right, so doing great. Hope you're doing well. Okay, I appreciate that, RCW. You have a 3-stream streak. Awesome. Widgeler, you fixed crashes in your render, and that's always super satisfying to do. We actually have a couple of issues when resizing the window that we need to fix too. But yeah, it's always great when you can solve bugs, right? Doing well, awesome. One other thing I do want to point out, actually, before we jump into the code, I meant to point this out at the very beginning. As you may or may not know, depending on where you live, there is a major hurricane out there, a storm, and that's not heading directly for me, thankfully, and I do live quite a bit inland, but there is the possibility that I lose internet and or power over the next couple of hours. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to put that out there just in case it does happen, and I have to shut the stream off. You guys will know why. I do have battery backups here and things, but they're really just here to keep everything from doing a hard cutoff, and I only really have a couple of minutes. So I'm not in Florida anymore. I'm actually in South Carolina now. But we're not exactly out of the clear, right? We're gonna get some bands from the northeast side of the storm. So I think up this way it's not going to be too much more than just a little bit of wind and a lot of rain. But you know how power is, right? There's already over 500,000 people in Florida without power now, and I only expect that number to grow. And that could happen up here too. So hopefully not, but I just figured I should put that out there. If we end early, that's why. Okay. You live in Ontario. Nice. Yeah, you're not going to get to you for sure. All right. So we were talking about the resource handling. So we already do have an asset handler for this, right? So we can load this off disk. And so what we need to do is take that that asset, which would be here. This is our callback for when the asset is loaded, the material asset. And we basically need to translate that into the K resource asset. And that is going to be what we're going to sort of fill out, right? So right away, the default /unknown case is going to be an error. So we're not really going to be able to do anything with that. We're just going to, for now, throw an error. I might actually fill out some sort of properties on the material just to make sure that it's obvious that it's invalid, right? But I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to default some of that stuff here. So if we do, let's see, it's going to be listener typed resource is what we're going to want, right? This is the resource that we're actually building. So if we do that, and then we do, let's see, we should probably do type, right? And we're going to say K resource material type. And this is just going to be unknown, right, by default. And that will right away be a trigger for us to know whenever we look at the particular material, hey, this isn't ready for use. And so we'll need to set up a few other things. So we can do typed resource. Let's look at base. So I think all of this stuff should actually be filled out. So that, I don't think we actually need to do anything there. So the next thing that we have to do is fill out basically these maps according to what type of material we're dealing with. So I'm just going to move this line down here, and we'll start off with, let's start off with the unlit material, right? So we're going to, the only one that the unlit material has is going to be the albedo diffuse map, right? So the first thing that we're going to want to do there is we're going to want to set that, set some properties for that, right? Now we have a whole bunch of this stuff here that we need to extract. And so we'll need to kind of extract out this information from the material if it's provided, right? So in order to do that, let's first off put a break here. And I'm going to comment this out for a second. And what we're going to do is, actually before we even get into processing all of this stuff, let's have a look at, let's see, we could do this in a couple of ways. So we could examine the asset, right, and take a look at the maps within that, right, which is basically going to be our, it's going to be our sort of, how do I want to word this? It's going to be our configuration for the individual maps, right? So we can either do that loop within the type of material it is initially, or we can set the loop around this and just say, well, you know, depending on what type it is, we should extract this particular one. I think I'm going to do the loop in here. And then the property names within that loop, right? So we'll do map count, and we'll do a for loop here. So for U32, and we'll start at 0. You know, I is less than the map count, plus I, and then, right? And what we'll do is we'll iterate each one of these guys, and we'll say if listener, asset, and then we'll do maps, and we'll do I as the index. And you know what, we should probably do, let's just do a convenience pointer here, right? So this is going to be, This is going to be k-asset material map. So k-asset material map. We'll just say map equals the address of that, right? And then we'll say if map, let's see, channel, I believe is what we're going to want to look at. We called these channels instead of maps in the asset. Maybe we should rethink about that. Oops. Map channel. Let's see. The channel itself, I believe, is just an enumeration. Equals k-asset material map channel. And for this one, we have map channel diffuse is what we're going to want to look for, right? So if it's that, then we'll go ahead and fill out the properties, right? And this is where we'll go ahead and extract all of the map's properties for that. We're probably going to wind up splitting this out into a function that does that for us. Let's see. Flaming Turtles with a rating party of 1. I appreciate that. Welcome. How are you doing? What were you getting up to on stream? I don't think we've met, but let me go ahead and toss you a follow. How are you doing tonight? What'd you get up to on stream? Looks like you're in a groove. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I hear the sort of notification, but it doesn't always immediately register. So sorry about that. I hope you're doing well. So yeah, what we're doing here is we're sort of rethinking / rebuilding our material system. All right, let's see. Doing great. Just found your channel while scrolling through. Figured I'd love to support how I can. I appreciate that. Been playing Black Myth Wukong for stream. I've heard that's a fantastic game. I've not picked it up, but I intend to do so at some point when I actually have time to play games. Anyway. But yeah, thank you so much for the raid. Talk is cheap, make a PR. Yeah, I know, right? I do need to make a... the PR for this branch is going to be absolutely massive. Okay, so... Here, we can do... Let's do this. Let's say... K resource material map. Material... What did I actually have that set up? I think it was a texture map I actually set that up as. Target map equals the address of this. Right? Yes, that was a texture map. Although now I kind of like the... I kind of like what we were going for the asset where we called it channel. Material map channel. I don't know that it should be map channel. It could probably just be channel though. I'll rename it later if we decide to go with that. I'm going to stick with this for right now. All right, so target map. So let's see. We're going to go with repeat u equals map repeat u, right? And we're just going to do the same thing for v and w. Right, so v and w, v and w. We're also going to do target map filter minify equals map filter min, and target map filter magnify equals map filter mag. Target map internal ID. I'm gonna zero that out for right now. Oops. and we'll come back to that. And then target map. I think the only other thing in here, we have the repeats. The generation needs to be invalid ID. And finally, the MIP levels. MIP levels we won't know until the texture is actually loaded. Which, thinking about this, why does the map need to even know about MIP levels? I'm not sure what I was thinking there. Maybe I synchronize it somehow. I'm going to do we need this space. All right, so I'll come back to that. We may wind up getting rid of that. And the only other thing is texture, which is going to be 0. Right? Now, we probably, like I said, we probably ought to extract this out to a function. But before I do that, the next part of handling this particular map is we'll have the map configured, right? The next thing we'll need to do is actually request the texture, which is just a pointer to a Kate resource texture. And if you recall how we do that elsewhere, we request it from the resource manager, right? So that's what we're going to wind up doing. Looks like you're doing great work here. Is there a goal for this? Problems being fixed, or are you building this? So both. So what we're doing is, when we started this series, it was kind of in a tutorial format. So there were things that I designed a certain way to meet that tutorial and kind of keep things very modular and not very complicated, right? The problem is that created some tech debt later down the road, right? So eventually the engine got to a point where it was too big, where a tutorial didn't really fit it anymore. And so we moved away from that format to this live stream format. And now I'm resolving some of that tech debt that came from doing it the way that we did it initially. But the end goal of the engine is obviously to make games with it. So we are getting close to the point where we're going to start our first game. We've actually even started some design discussions on it. And so one of the things that we needed to really critically redo was the way that resources and assets were handled, because we also need a way to reliably package those assets with the game when we go to ship it, right, for like a release build. And so we have that, and then we also have the need to be able to jobify the loading of all of this stuff, so it could be multi-threaded. Parts of it were and parts of it weren't. It was very ad hoc. And so the idea is we want to multi-thread basically the loading of all assets and resources. And so this new way that we're sort of doing this allows for that. But it also means that we have to, consolidate, eliminate a lot of code, and make things a little bit more generic. The other problem that we had was we had several systems doing their own sort of resource counting and auto-releasing of resources. So for example, if we had two different materials referencing the same texture, for example, and you released one of those materials, it would release one of the references to that texture. But the texture would stay loaded until you release the second one. And then once that reference count reached 0, then it goes, okay, my reference count is 0, I can unload myself, right? And that happened automatically. But the problem is that stuff was scattered across different places in code because we did it in separate units as a tutorial. Well, now we've got this central resource handler that does all of that automatically for us. So we can actually remove some of that repeated logic and look up tables and stuff like that, because we have an actual central place to actually handle that. So it's just stuff like that. Like we're building stuff, we are building the engine still, but we're also refactoring to resolve some of those issues. Dingus Dev, thank you for the lurk. We haven't done any Dingus-oriented programming tonight, though, but welcome. All right. So the texture here is actually going to be a texture. I think we can actually request this directly from the texture system itself. So I believe we should also have map. We have image asset name and image and image asset package name. So we're going to know both of those things based off of the material that's loaded. Let's see, we also have name. Did we set the name of this target? Target map. We do not have a name in there. I wonder if we should. I'm not going to worry about it for now, but we might add name in there as well. We have it in our configuration, but... All right, so let's do texture system, and let's do a request. And the name is actually going to be the... I think we can just use the asset name directly. Yeah, that should be fine. So it should be map, image asset name, and map image package name. And then let's see, listener and a callback. All right, so what this is going to do is this is going to make a request to our asset system for the texture. Now, it immediately returns a pointer to an unloaded texture, right? Which is how we can set this. But at this point, this texture cannot be considered loaded because when this returns, this is just kicking off a request for a texture. It's not actually loaded the texture as of yet. Technically, right now, that's not 100% true because it's synchronous right now, but when we jobify it, it definitely won't be, right? So we shouldn't code anything synchronously. So we go ahead and we make the request. That gives us a pointer to a texture resource. And then what we should do is when this particular asset, or texture resource rather, is loaded, we should make a callback because the texture map itself will also need resources created based on this configuration, but also this MIP levels, which we would get from the texture itself. So we don't necessarily want to set up the texture map for this until the texture is actually loaded, I'm thinking. Or can we? So if I do renderer, do we not have... Texture resources acquire. Shader instance resources. I need this one right here. Render K resource texture map resources acquire. So this one, just to refresh my memory, we pass through a texture map, a pointer to a texture map, and then maybe we can do this. We'll try this. I don't know that it's going to work. We might have to play around with this for a bit, but I believe this returns a Boolean. Yep, for success or failure. So we should definitely do a negative check on that. So this is going to need engine systems gets renderer system, and then it's going to need target map, right? And if that fails for some reason, we're not even going to request the asset. So we'll say k error failed to acquire texture map resources for material. And I guess we can just output the material name. Let's see. I guess that's, we should probably specify the actual material itself, or which map it is. For the blank map, right? And then that is going to be, so the material is going to be listener typed resource base name, and then the map is going to be the map name, right, which we do have. So in this case, we're going to boot out, and I don't think this returns a boolean of any kind. No, it does not. So we'll go ahead and request resources for the texture map itself. And then if that fails, we'll bleat about it. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and make a texture system request, which makes me think that we might not need the listener, actually, or the callback. And we can always add those. If for some reason we have to do these the other way around, we can always add a callback. It's not a big deal. All right. So that's basically the way that this is going to work for all of our maps, right? So essentially we'll have, for each material type, we'll have a collection of maps. We'll loop through those maps, copy over any of the configuration that we need, request resources for the texture map, request the actual texture to be associated with that texture map. And then I guess, oh, you know what? We probably are going to need a callback because the material, well, I suppose we could consider the material loaded at this point. Its textures might not be, but we can use default textures if those aren't loaded. So I guess we can say listener typed resource base state equals k resource state loaded, right? And we should probably also, when we go to actually request this, which would be here, right before we actually make this asset system request, we should probably switch the state there. Inst, that should be inst, to loading. Okay. The only other thing that we should do is typed resource state base state equals k resource state. And at this point, we're going to say uninitialize. And then once we do this stuff, I'm going to put this in here anyways. It's a little bit redundant to switch to one state and then the next. Actually, we could just use typed resource. But in case we ever add any steps in between, it'll be nice to have those steps, sort of split out. So here we're going to start off uninitialized. If it fails for some reason, it'll be uninitialized. Then we'll technically switch to initialize, switch immediately to loading, barring any issues in between here. And then it'll be loading until the asset system request is fulfilled for the material asset. So whenever that asset is loaded, it is sent back to here. This guy then kicks off all of the loading for the individual textures for texture maps within that resource. However, the map itself can then be marked as loaded, even if the textures associated with it aren't. I think that makes sense. Let's see. We catch up on... Thank you for the lurk, Flaming Turtles. It's kind of like deep cleaning your code. Yes, exactly. I don't know if that's LLBYNX or IIBYNX. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but the font I'm using is... what is it? Meslo LGS NF is the font that I'm using. It's this one. Speakerman, how's it going? First time chats. Is there a way to run code and see it load the texture in real time? Yes, actually we can technically see that happening, although the code doesn't build right now because I've got it all taken apart. But yeah, ordinarily what this does, since all of this stuff happens asynchronously, is when we have the texture loaded up, when we have the material loaded up, sorry, what will happen is since these textures aren't necessarily loaded, because those might take a while, particularly if we're doing something like importing a texture, that might take a little bit, is we'll display like a default checkerboard pattern texture until that actually loads. And then it'll get swapped out on the fly. So the renderer, when it goes to use this texture map and the texture, says, hey, is this resource that we're actually using loaded or not? And if it's not, okay, let's fall back to a default that should be using in that case. That way we don't crash, but we also we're not necessarily stuck on a loading screen, right? And so there's examples in the past where we actually see the textures sort of pop in as they load. Right now, it's not going to do that because obviously I can't run it. But yeah, that's sort of the way that it works. Arch for the win, yes. I am using Arch, by the way. Eyeless42, how's it going? Good to see you. Beard is becoming legendary. Yes, it is. Yeah, I've been told by chat that I'm not allowed to cut it until I release the first game. Beard is become... Wait. Beard Spiro, what? You just broke my brain with that sentence. Beard is become legendary. All tenses. Past, present, and future, I suppose, right? More and more legendary each stream. Yeah. I might actually wind up having to like trim it a little bit though, because it's tangling like crazy. Heard if you snip a portion off and then try to reattach it, the timeline literally implodes inside out. Should we try that on stream and then, just bring down Twitch as a result, probably? Sasquatch is jealous of the beard. Let's see. Do I respond manually to any command that doesn't autocomplete in chat? I mean, no. I'm not responding to those. Finish all code. You're funny. You're a funny guy, Spiro. Why did I make you mod again? Do my work. Richie and Thompson would admire that beard. I mean, you might be right. You might be right. I've seen pictures. And I think mine actually might be more grown out than theirs. Yeah, no worries, speaker man. All good. All right. So, obviously, I don't want to repeat all of this over and over again, right? And in fact, this line belongs outside of the for loop, because that is once all of the assets have been requested. So I guess the way that I could do this, would be to create a function that takes in I should probably do a function that actually includes this loop as well. Right, and then also it should probably take in maybe this type. I don't know. So here's what I'm thinking, right? There are map channels that are valid for different types of materials, and map types that don't make sense on other types of materials. So for example, for an unlit material, the only type of map that it'll ever use is diffuse. So in that case, like if we have anything else for a map channel, then we'll just do an error, and we'll say an unlit material does not use a map of something type, right? And I don't think I have a string representation of those. Or do I? K-asset type from string. We have it for image format, but we don't have it for material types. I'm not going to worry about that for now. I'm just going to print it out as a number then. So we'll just do map channel. And then we'll actually say skipping. So we're going to put out an error message, but we're going to say we're skipping this map. And we'll also output name equals the name of the map, so at least we can kind of look at the material file and figure out what the heck is going on. So we'll do map name. Right? And then we'll just continue. Okay. So this, I guess, is what I'm going to want to extract to a function, is this bit here. So we need to extract a pointer to a k-resource texture map. And we need to pass through the k-asset material map. And that might be it, actually. So let's copy this. Let's go and I'm gonna prototype this up here, and then we'll move it. So let's do static. Let's return a Boolean, right? And we'll say process asset material map, right? And we'll take k-asset material map. We'll take a pointer to that, and we'll call it map, just as we have below. And then we'll also take a pointer to a k-resource texture map. And we'll call this target map. And then we'll paste this code in here. And we don't actually need that line because it's passed in. And then if we have this error, we're going to return false. Otherwise, we're going to return true down here. What is this bleating about? Typed resource based name. Oh, right. It wants the material name. We can provide that too. So we'll do a kname material name. And then material name. Okay. And then we can just do process asset material map down here. And actually what we'll do is if not process material map, we'll pass through, let's see, what was that going to wind up being again? Listener typed resource base name. The map is just going to be map. The texture map is going to be target map. If this fails, failed to process material map, see logs for details. All right. That means that we can take all of this and get rid of it. Which I guess technically we don't even need to create like this target map. We could actually just do this. Oops. Delete that. All right. Much simpler, I think. Right? So this particular map, or this particular material type only has one map, right? The others will not be so simple. So essentially, the only part that we're gonna have to repeat this loop, right, per thing. But I think that's fine. Let's do this though. If we hit an error instead of breaking here, we're gonna return. And the reason for that is because I'm actually going to move this state loaded down here, right? So we only have to use that once. And then I'm going to take this and come down here and we'll do fong next. Break. And for this one, Fong, we're still going to have the map channel diffuse, but we're also going to support 2 other maps. Now, I wonder if I should just do... I should probably change this to a switch. Just feels better to use a switch here. Let's cut that out of here. We'll go case, paste. And then get rid of that. And that's bleating about the other cases, which is fine. We're going to take this and say default. Right? And then continue here. Why is that so messed up? Maybe does it not like... I guess we could just break. We don't have to actually continue there. I don't know why my spacing here is all messed up, though. Case... Oh, this should not be there. It should be there. There we go. Okay. So here's the diffuse. I suppose I could use a lookup table to do this a little bit less repetitively, but I'm going to just roll with it for now. Let's see. Oh, we have a raid. I didn't even hear the raid go off. CM Griffing with a raid of 56 viewers. Thank you so much for the raid. How's it going, Chris? How are you doing tonight? What'd you get up to on the stream? I was just kind of in the zone coding there for a minute. If you guys aren't following Chris, definitely do so. He's a pretty awesome dude. He's always getting up to pretty cool stuff on stream. He has a pretty amazing feature flag product that he's working on. And I highly recommend you guys check it out if you haven't already. Worked on my slides for SquiggleConf. The talk is about Xdism. It's a WASM-powered plugin. Ooh. You have my attention with WASM. That's awesome. SDK PDK. That sounds pretty sweet. I'm going to have to look that up. In fact, I'm going to open that on another tab. And I'm going to look that up later. That sounds pretty sweet. Well, cool. So thank you so much for the raid, and welcome raiders. Let me give my quick introduction as to what we're doing here so that you guys aren't completely lost. For those of you who are new, we are working on something called the Kohi game engine, which is a game engine that is coded completely from scratch on C, using C and using Vulkan as its initial rendering backend. I say initial rendering backend because there are plans to use Direct3D and Metal as well. Potentially OpenGL, haven't decided on that one yet. So the game engine is built almost entirely on camera, and it started off as a YouTube tutorial series, changed formats as I was trying to figure out what worked best. Ultimately, we landed here on the live stream format. Essentially, the idea is that we're building this as an educational exercise and resource. I'm kind of building the resource that I wish that I had when I was learning how to do this stuff. So we do all kinds of different stuff in terms of making a game engine. We're making all the systems from scratch. We make very sparing use of third-party libraries. We try to write a lot of the stuff ourselves, except where it doesn't make sense, right? There's a few places where we didn't do that, such as various image format imports, reading TrueType font files, things like that. But other than that, everything is written from scratch. So we do simulcast to YouTube and Twitch, and the engine itself is open source and free. It is cross-platform, so it runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. And when I say it's open source, it is available on GitHub. So I'll drop a link to the main website that we're looking at here in chat. Thank you for the lurk, Chris. I appreciate that. Also let you know when the talk video is published. Awesome. I will take a look at it. Please do let me know. And so all of the engine is here on GitHub. It is Apache 2.0 licensed, which means that you can use it for whatever you want, whether it be personal or commercial. It does not matter. The only thing that I ask if you use it is just say you used it. That's literally it. There will never be any sort of licensing fees or royalties of any kind ever. This is designed to be an educational resource and reference material, and I don't believe in paywalling that. I think that kind of stuff should be free and the knowledge should be shared. Competition in this space is a good thing, and I want to promote that. That's the whole purpose, right? So I can show you a couple of a little bit old screenshots now because I need to update these, but we're in the middle of kind of a refactor. But we do have a basic physically based rendering lighting model with cascading shadow maps. Here is another view of what that looks like. We do have text rendering available as well, including UTF-8 rendering. So that's all, again, written from scratch. We also have our own UI system that is also written from scratch. It is sort of in its infancy stages as well. But yeah, that is pretty much everything, I believe. This main website here has links to, obviously, our YouTube and Twitch channels. It has a link to the Discord server, which is about, I think it's just under 1,000 people now. It's like 990, I think, last time I looked. And then it also has a link to GitHub and Patreon, as well as the actual stream down here. So I think that's pretty much it. So this is designed to be an interactive stream, so if you guys want to chat or have any questions, feel free to add them. in the chat, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. What we're working on right now is a fairly large-scale refactor of our resource and asset systems. And the reason for that is because when we started this, I mentioned we started in a tutorial format, which works best if you have bite-sized pieces that are independent units of code, right? And the problem with that is, that those units of code didn't take other systems into account, really. And so what we're doing now is we've switched to a separation of assets and K resources, or resources, in an effort to unify some of that code, particularly around reference counting and auto-releasing and ownership, things like that, so that that's all managed in one place. And then we don't have to worry about, random life cycles of textures at some random place in the code base, right? It's all handled by a resource system automatically for us. And so we're switching to that new resource system now, and we're basically moving all of our other systems that reference resources over to use that system. So I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of words, I know, but that's basically what we're doing. All right. I think I'm caught up on chat. Dr. Elliott, how's it going? Good to see you. Oscar over on the YouTube side. Wow, your spell check is busted. Okay. I grasp the generalities, but the minutia rather are like Mandarin Chinese. Yeah, so I assume you're talking about are you actually talking about the actual physical text rendering? Because this is Japanese and this is Korean, but we support, a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see. The minutia are... Oh, you're talking about, like, all the details. Like, the details that we're getting into here. Like, the nitty-gritty. That's basically what we're after, right? That's what we're refactoring now. Extremely interesting watch, listen. Haven't coded since the times of the Amiga. Awesome. I've always wanted to get an Amiga. I've never had one. My first machine was I think it was a 386 with 640K of RAM running MS-DOS. It was either 5 or 622. I can't remember. But yeah, I miss that old school stuff. Let's see. I'm on the dev team for an open source ongoing project and art design concept troubleshoot roles. Pretty sweet. That's awesome. Does make sense. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's see. Thank you for the subscription over there. I appreciate that. Keep up the good work. You roll amazing stuff. I appreciate the kind words, Night Rituals. Thank you. All right. So we were in the middle of defining which maps get used for which types of materials. And I do recognize this is a little bit repetitive, but maybe we'll generalize this to make something that's a little bit less repetitive at some point. But we are going to use... let's see. We should probably say material diffuse... Wait. Actually, we have a map name in here. Let's do this. Oops. Let's actually use map name, right? And actually copy pasta that. Okay, so for Fong materials, we have normal, diffuse, and then one last one, which is specular, right? So the specular map is there, so we'll process that. And those are the only properties that we actually need to set on that. That being said, though, didn't we have, let me just check something. So we do have a diffuse color. which is used in some scenarios. So how did we do that in configuration? I'm trying to remember. I think it was something along the lines of, we have the maps here. Listener, assets, properties. Let's just do sub-0 for a second. We do have a name. And then we have a type. That's the shader uniform type, and then size and the value of that. So we do have in the material, we do have the diffuse color that we need to account for. And technically speaking, unlit has this as well. So Fong and unlit will have this. I don't know if I'm going to bother with it for PBR, because PBR, the albedo, is what specifies the color. And I'm not sure how I want to make that work. Of like, you define both, which do we fall back to, right? So I may have to do a little bit of thinking / experimentation around that. Let's see. No coder, but I was a hobbyist. Age of Joy for Quest VR headsets, in case you're curious. That sounds awesome. And that's fair enough. Like, we all have different sets of skills, right? So just because you're a coder doesn't mean that your skills aren't valuable, right? They definitely are. You know, I started off with art, actually, and I transitioned to programming. So, you know, it's just because I liked it more. Are you using Vim or NeoVim? I'm using NeoVim, technically. Just because I like the configuration via Lua better. It's easier for me to work with, I think. Okay, so we technically need to loop through the properties, right? And I believe we were saying, did we actually convert any of these? This is going to be the other thing that I have to do, is I actually have to convert all these materials to the new format, which I don't think I've actually done for any of the materials yet, which is going to be manual and painful. And I'm probably not going to do that on stream, because that's just gross. Did I get any of them, though? Let's see. So they're supposed to be KSON files. There's one. Okay. So it looks like I did convert one. So this is what the new material file is going to look like, right? So we have these maps, and then we have properties, right? So this has diffuse color and shininess, or actually two properties that we need. Diffuse color is going to be used in both. Shininess is only going to be used in Fong, right? And then we can specify, you know, the type of that and the value for those things. So, I guess we're gonna have to look at this by property name, because I don't think we actually have an enumeration for that. So the name in this case, if that is equal to, and I'm gonna have to do a kname create, and it's gonna be diffuse. Did I say it was map? Diffuse color. All right, so let's do this the right way. So we're also going to do essentially this same loop. Right. Except instead of map counts, it's going to be property count, and then instead of material map, it's going to be material property. Yep. And then asset properties sub I. And then let's just rename this to prop. And then we can get rid of all of this. Right? And then we can say if, oops. Right? So if we have diffuse color, then we can go ahead and parse that out, right? So we can say listener typed resource diffuse color equals prop value. And since that's a union, we'll already have the vector 4 parsed, right? So we could just pull that right from that union. So for Fong, we have diffuse color. We also have this for unlit. So I'm just going to actually take this section as it exists now and put this here, right? And then I'm going to come back down here and say else if prop name equals kname creates, and I get kname create here is not efficient, and we really ought to fix that and have an enumeration that we can look at instead of having to look at the name, because that's rubbish. But we'll deal with the rubbish for now. So kname create. Let's see, what did we say? I think that was going to be specular. What did I say that was going to be? Shininess. Shininess is kind of gross. Specular strength. What did I call that in... What did I call that over here? Oh, specular shininess. Okay. Well, that's still kind of rubbish, but I guess... I kind of like specular strength better, though. I think I'm going to stick with specular strength. So let's do this. We'll do specular strength. And then we'll refactor this here. Right, we'll say specular strength, and then here we'll do listener typed resource specular strength equals prop value F32. Right, since that's a single float. Otherwise, K error property and I guess we'll do property name here for material not recognized, skipping. Right, and then we can say the property name, which I think we're going to have to do a kname string get. Right, and then material is going to be also a kname string get, which is going to be listener typed resource. Oh, do we not have? Oh, base name. There we go. Okay. And I suppose this doesn't need to be an error. This can just be a warning, actually. Isn't C++ better because of OOP and more libraries, for example? No and no. Why did you pick C to make the engine? Few reasons. My C++ always looked a lot like C because I don't use most of C++ features. I don't use a lot of OOP to begin with, namely because it's not needed. It gets in the way. Memory fragmentation, you name it. There's a whole bunch of reasons, right? OOP is not the one-size-fits-all solution that people make it out to be. For some things, it's fine, but for a lot of game engine development, you don't need it, right? So I don't use it, and I don't use most of C++'s features anyways. So when I started this project, I'm like, you know what? My C usually looks pretty much like C. I always called it C++ Lite, right? And I'm like, well, if I'm doing that, maybe I should just try making an engine in C. Because there hasn't been one out there, right? Everybody uses C++. So I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to do it in C as a challenge. And then it just kind of stuck. And I figured I'll switch to C++ if I ever need to, and I've gotten this far and I haven't needed to. So I don't think I'm going to ever need to switch. But yeah, hope that answers that. Let's see. He uses DOP. Yes, DOP for dingus-oriented programming. Yes, we do that here. Maget how's it going? Isn't shininess just a specular exponent in Phong? Yes, it is a specular exponent. I just don't like the term specular exponent. Yeah, I've called it specular exponent in the past. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I could do that. I don't know, I just don't like it. C99 is truly peak for writing game engines. I'm technically using C17. Only because I was using a couple of C11 features, which I might actually back out at some point. But if you're using, with C at least, this is not necessarily true for C++, but with C, if you're using C11, you might as well use C17, because C17 doesn't actually add anything new. It's like bug fixes for C11. So I'm using C17. But I could probably without too much issue convert this to C99. I don't think there'd be much issue at all. There's a couple places where I know I'm using C11 stuff, but it's pretty limited. Fair enough. Yep. All right. So those are properties for Phong and unlit materials. Now, PBR. Oh, you know what? This type count belongs up here too. Because that's just there, so I know how many types I have. Now, there's a couple things in here, like these guys, that I think I'm going to eliminate. But I'm going to put them all under PBR for right now. So what these are, and we talked a little bit about this last night. So assets actually have a concept of like a terrain material and a water material, right? Now the water material might stick, but the terrain material I don't think we're going to need, right? Because the terrain material is really just a collection of PBR materials mixed. So I think I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to delete that one. I am going to keep PBR water because that is actually a different type of material with different properties. So I think that's fine. I might create a Phong water as well. Unlit water doesn't really make sense. That'll just be unlit. But we might wind up creating water for a Phong model as well. So I can get rid of that. All right. And PBR water for right now, I'm just going to do a k-assert here. K-assert message. And I'm going to say false, right? So it always triggers. And then water material type not yet supported. right? Because we use a special shader for that. We don't have that going through the material system. Why does that not come through? Let's do debug ksert. There we go. I don't know why it wouldn't auto import that, but fine. Okay, so custom tier materials are also not yet supported. But we have the property stubbed out, so we have to just not support this explicitly. Let's also do a return. Wreck of the Dead, thank you very much for the supporter over on the YouTube side. Thank you very much for the support. I appreciate that a lot. That means a lot. I appreciate it. Helps me cover expenses having to do with this project, so thank you for that. One of the expenses being I actually just finally purchased a video editor for short form content. Which, speaking of which, there's a whole bunch of that coming, by the way. But yeah, thank you very much for the support on that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I certainly hope you do learn. I have lots of content on the channel for sure. And everything that we do here is all archived on the YouTube channel. So you got to join the C99 brigade. Yeah, like I said, I'm not actually far off from it. Microsoft C is the peak. You don't even have type of whatnot. Yeah, exactly. And type of is actually the reason that I'm using C17. And it's technically a GNU extension. That was one of the reasons. There was another one too. There was something else I was doing somewhere that was using it. It might have been static assertions or something. I forget exactly what it was. But yeah, it was all things that I could basically just get rid of if I don't really need them. So at some point I am probably going to switch to C99. I might actually just try it after this refactor to see what all needs to be changed. All right. So PBR, I'm going to actually move this up here. Because PBR, let's see, PBR actually doesn't have any properties yet. But what I'm going to do anyway is just kind of stub out all of this stuff. Kind of copy pasta it, right? But instead of doing this, I'm actually just going to comment this out, right? And just bleat about the property not being supported, right? So if we add any properties in there for a PBR type material, we're going to complain about it. All right, so PBR materials use different channels. So we have a channel here. We should have albedo. So that still goes to the albedo diffuse map. That is fine. We do use the normal map, but we do not use a specular map. So instead of the specular map, we have, I guess we'll do metallic first. Now this is where things get a little bit weird, because we do not have a single like metallic roughness AO map. They're not separated, right? So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to check and see if we have all of those maps when we're done loading all of the maps that are configured. And we're going to combine those in code. And this is probably where we're going to have to actually do that. And then we're going to basically take the red channel out of the metallic map, the roughness map, and the AO map. We're just going to use the red channel out of those. But then we'll remap them into a new image, a new RGB image, where the red will be metallic, the green will be roughness, and the blue will be AO. And then we'll take that resulting texture and then put it into here. If you need a video editor, I can help with that. I used to edit some videos. I may take you up on that at some point, but for right now, I'm able to handle it. So I appreciate that, though. But yeah, I've actually got a bunch of YouTube shorts edited out, almost through the end of the year, actually. So those are going to start coming out like next week, I think. Let's see. Yeah, technically next Tuesday will be when the first one comes out. La Folie, how's it going? Good to see you. Spiro giving him a hard time. Oh, you used the sad one though. You like the shorts? Yeah, I want to bring those back. Because I enjoyed doing them, but like I kind of fell behind and like my backlog of them ran out. And so what I wanted to do was like before I brought them back, I wanted to have a couple months worth of backlog so that way I don't run out again, hopefully. So at least through the end of the year, I've still got to edit another, I think, 10 or 12 maybe, somewhere around there. 10 or 12 more videos, and then I'll have enough to actually have a daily release all the way through the end of the year, and then we'll worry about it afterwards. But yeah, those are coming back. Okay. So, how do I want to handle this? Let's come back to that one. Let's do the emissive map next. Oh, I just realized we don't have break statements in here. Which makes me wonder. We don't have them up here either. I thought so. Okay. All right. So instead of normal here, we'll do emissive map, and then this will go to emissive. All right, now, so for metallic, how do I want to do this? So ultimately what I need to do we're going to have to handle this situation a little bit kind of custom because we can't just pass through a texture here and just, get it by name. Let me think about this. How do we want to actually accomplish this? So what we ultimately need to do, we need to create a new texture, right? Like a writable texture. And then as that texture data comes in, write the asset image data into that texture and potentially assign it to the map. So I guess, okay, let's do it this way. So if we'll say if not listener typed resource metallic roughness AO map. If we've not assigned it yet, then what we're going to do is say listener typed resource metallic roughness AO map equals texture system request writable. right? So the name of this is going to be let's do, we're going to actually have to construct a name, aren't we? Because technically we're not going to have, all right, so let's do, I guess we'll do the material name plus metallic roughness AOM, I guess. So we'll do map name equals, we'll do string format, and that format will be the name of the material underscore metallic roughness AO generated. Make it super obvious what it is and how it was made. And so that way all we'll need to do is do listener typed resource base name as the parameter that gets input. Then we'll do kname create, pass to that map name, right? But then we also have to specify width. So we're going to actually have to, this takes a lot of parameters actually, so I'm actually going to just, so for width, we actually have to do, we're going to have to do, let me think, this requests the texture, right? So we're not actually going to know, we're not going to know the name of that. So we can't technically do this yet. All right. I'm going to hard code something for now. We're going to change it, right? Just to sort of get this figured out, right? So the format will just assume RGBA. Has transparency, we'll assume false. And then multi-frame buffering will also assume false. And this needs to be AOMap texture is equal to that. Let's see. Oh, this should be texture. There we go. Okay, so we can't do this bit via this function. We actually are going to have to do this manually, which kind of sucks, but this is a special case, so I'm all right with it. So once we do that, we actually need to come in here and let's see, our target map is going to be resource texture map pointer target map equals address of, and this is going to be listener typed resource metallic roughness AO map. Okay, so we have that, and then this technically is going to wind up being, yeah, target map. Yes, okay. Return. If that fails, we'll just return, I suppose. And then here's the texture system request. So we get rid of that one. We create the map name, set up a request for the writable texture. Free the map name, because we don't need it after we do the kname create, right? And then we basically just have to move this to asset loaded callback. Okay. So, instead of, didn't we also have, oh, I nuked this and I need it, actually. Oh wait, no, I don't need that. Never mind. Or do I? Yes, I do need it. I need it to request the actual metallic texture, right? Okay, so get rid of this. And I guess, technically speaking, this really ought to go there. And then this is not going to be target map texture. This is actually going to be a new key resource texture pointer. Called that. Okay. What is this bleating about? What is this? Expected expression. What am I missing here? I don't know what I'm missing. It's probably super obvious. I'm just not seeing it. K resource texture pointer is what that returns. Help me understand why that's failing. All right. Daily, yep. Daily shorts. Gotta break your code or... Wait, gotta break your code or will break because it doesn't break when you want it to break, so it doesn't break. Yeah. Break. What I actually like to do for longer longer sections of code is I sometimes like to just kind of scope them out like that, just to avoid issues, which in this case, that apparently was the issue. For short sections like this, I don't bother, but like for something that does a lot of stuff like this, I prefer it. Okay, so what this is going to do, this is actually all going to be the asset loaded callback. So what we're going to do is we are going to... Actually, this isn't even... Let me think about this for a second. Right, okay. This bit actually has to be, if we don't have the texture yet, then we need to request a writable texture. That has to happen no matter what. So this check wasn't necessarily valid. If we do not have the texture, we can go ahead and also do this bit and acquire the texture map resources, right? So that still applies. So the only bit that actually has to be moved is actually this bit. Material name. What is... Did I nuke that and I shouldn't have? I guess it's just going to be kname string get listener typed resource base name. Okay. This is one of those situations where I feel like some comments would help. So, request a writable texture to use as the final combined metallic roughness AO map. So that actually would go... We could actually do this down here. We could actually do that there. Set up texture map resources. Right, because we'll only do that once if the texture is actually assigned, then we don't have to worry about that. Let's get rid of this. This is going to be target map texture. All right, and then this gets moved to a asset loaded callback. So the callback is going to be this resource loaded user callback. You know what? Actually, though, that's not right. This needs to be an asset request. We don't want a texture system request. Well, wait a minute. Shoot. I'm confusing myself here. So we need a writable texture. Which, where did that go? I thought I had that in here. Did I not? That's this. Right. I can't do this until I know. That's why I was thinking all of that needed to be moved. Okay, I think what I need to do is I need to set up the asset request for the individual map and then go from there. So, all right, this does need to actually move up here. And what we'll do is, whoops. I'm just going to put this here. So, texture system request. This is not what we want. We want asset system request, right? We want to request an asset. Okay, so we need the asset system state, and then the type, and then the package name, and then the asset name. So we'll swap those. We'll do engine systems get asset state, and then asset type. In this case, is going to be an image. Then the package name, then the asset name. Whether or not we want to auto-release it, that's going to be true. And then listener instance and a callback. We are going to need that. And then import params. I don't think we're going to use import params, right? So I think we can just, we don't have to worry about importing that. I think we can just load the asset as is. I wonder if I should set up like a special sort of import method to actually handle this stuff. So we don't want the texture to be set to that. The texture actually needs to be set to this down here. So what we have here, I don't think this actually, yeah, this doesn't return anything. So this goes away. Right, and we need to set up some sort of context for it, or slash listener instance, and then k-asset on result callback. Okay. So let's go to definition on this. Just grab that function definition real quick. And I guess we can put this, I guess we'll put it right above here. So this is going to be static as well. And we're going to call this material on I guess let's go with metallic roughness AO image loaded. Image asset. Long function name, yes, I know. All right. So then we can take this and put it here. I think it was listener then callback. Yeah. Okay. So right there. All right. And then let's see. So for the listener instance, we're basically going to need to know the texture map that it's being assigned to, and what channel it's for, and then we'll get the resource or the asset rather here. I think that makes sense. So I guess we're going to have to type def a structure for this. Let's do material metallic roughness AO listener. Fine. And then to this, we're going to add k-resource texture map pointer. We'll call this target map just to keep it crystal clear as to what it is. And then we'll need to know k-asset material map channel. So we'll need to know that. That might be it, actually. So for here, we'll do material MRA listener. And in here, we'll do material MRA listener, material MRA listener pointer. We'll cast listener instance to that. And then we'll do this bit. Oops. Actually, I can just move this bit. Okay, so this is once we've loaded a texture, we're going to actually have to say at this point, actually, I guess we need to do this check there, right? We're going to have to do this. And listener just needs to be target map texture. Target map is just equal to listener target map for convenience. I guess we're going to need we're also going to need the map itself, the source map, right? So that's going to be the K-asset material map. All right, so this is going to be listener map, and then dot, right? So listener okay. It's a fascinating coincidence. The guys were dealing with exactly the same subject a couple of days ago, incorporating materials implementation into user-generated content. AOJ uses Unity. Okay, yeah, I gotcha. How do you organize your engine? I started graphics programming recently, and I'm having trouble with that. Do you use any any programming paradigms specifically? So I'll touch on this real quick. I'll go over the whole project, I guess, from a high level perspective. So this is sort of a tree view of like what the repo looks like, and so anything with Kohi dot is part of the engine itself, in some way or another. So we have something called the Kohi core, which contains like all of our like our containers, some of our debugging stuff, our math library, our memory management, parsers. Our platform layers are contained in here. Serializers, string management, threads, all that kind of stuff, right? Stuff that either a runtime application could use or utilities could use, right? It's just stuff that's absolutely core to the engine. And then after that, we have Kohi runtime. And so this is what contains the sort of the core game loop, right? The application is based off of the runtime. So this contains things such as, you know, our application scaffolding code, like some of our interfaces, for lack of a better term. It contains our audio front end, our renderer front end. It contains various systems like, you know, our asset system, our audio system front end, our font system, all these other systems, right? Jobs, et cetera, et cetera. it contains our, we have K resources and resources. So resources are kind of what we're getting rid of, and we're going to K resources. So this is sort of just the new version of that. It contains some core things like our console, our event system, our core engine, input handling, key maps, that kind of stuff, right? But we also have, and I mentioned a renderer front end and a audio front end. So what that means is our renderer has a front end and a back end, and the front end is what is graphics API agnostic. So it's what the rest of the engine interfaces with, and the rest of the engine knows nothing about the fact that we're using Vulkan or any of that stuff. It only cares about and interfaces with the renderer front end. So the renderer front end is completely agnostic of any type of render code whatsoever. And the back end is where all that stuff is implemented. However, we have made it so that our renderer backend is implemented via a plugin. And that gives the application ultimately the ability to choose what renderer it wants to use. So right now, the Vulkan is the only one, right? But if we expand this into where we're headed with this, eventually we're going to have a direct 3D renderer and a metal renderer for macOS, right? And so for macOS builds, we might want to include Vulkan, which does run on that, but through a translation layer. Or we might only want to use metal, right? And so it could be up to the application as to which ones it wants to use, and then it loads those things up. Now, like I said, the only one right now that we support is Vulkan, but we'll have the option, right? And that's the way, indeed, all the plugins work. So the application can specify what it wants to use and what it doesn't want to use. So right now we only have one audio plugin and one renderer plugin, but eventually that'll be expanded. Our UI system is actually a plugin. So a lot of engines have their UI system built in. Ours is completely optional. If you don't want to use it, or if your game's not going to use it, you don't have to. Or you can also set it up so that you can use the standard UI in, say, a debug build, so that you can get that drop-down console from the top for debugging purposes. But on a release build, maybe you don't include it, right? So we have the ability to do that as well. And then we have a utility library, which is mainly for like editing utils and stuff like that. That's where all of our like asset importers and exporters sit. So you'd want to include that with an application like an editor application or like a debug build of your game, right? For auto asset imports, from like importing a JPEG or a PNG to our proprietary image format that's binary. And so you'd want to include that in a debug build, but you would not want to include that in a release build, for example. So that's how our plugins more or less work, right? So beyond that, we have a couple of tools here, which I won't really go into. They're just kind of extraneous utilities. But then we have what I call the testbed, which is our current application. That's our driver application. That's just our sort of application that runs the whole thing, right? Allows us to test that kind of thing. So what this is actually split into two pieces. We have the K app and the K lib. The K app is just a very, very simple single file for the entry point, right, of the application. So it's designed to be super, super light and small. And all of the sort of game or application code sits in the klib for that. And the reason for that is because the klib is hot reloadable. So we can have the application running and recompile just this library file and automatically reload it and have that work in real time. Obviously, that has its benefits and drawbacks too. It doesn't work with anything. Sometimes you do have to shut everything down and start it back up, but we do have that functionality built in, and that's why those two things are split up. Yeah, I think that more or less should cover it. Let's see. I hope that clarified it a little bit. In Upland, it's what they call dependency inversion. More or less, yeah. Or dependency injection is another term for it, right? Where we're kind of stating that that Vulkan is the renderer that we want to use, and it sort of gets injected, right? That's another way of thinking about it if you need to think about it in terms of OOP. Okay. Let's see. With several add-ons by the look of it, for NeoVim, yes. What IDE is this? Want to venture out from VS? Yeah, this is NeoVim. And actually, I have. I think the command was that. Yes. There's a link to my NeoVim configuration if you're interested in that. It's an article I wrote up on my website that has a full detailing of what I actually use and why. Let's see. So listener is an optional thing for users to hook into engine stuff. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So it allows me to specify a listener when I need to and not when I don't need to, which most cases I don't have to have a listener, right? In this case, I do need a listener in a callback so that I can, do the special processing that this process requires. NK Coder, how's it going? I am doing well, thank you for asking. Do you have your dot files somewhere or just the Vim? So I don't publish all of my dot files publicly anyways. I have way too many of them. Just because I post my NeoVim configuration, but I figure anything outside of that's probably super custom to me. So I don't publish my other dot files. I don't really see the point. It's super custom to the way I have this set up, right? Let's see. Got any resources for learning C that you think are good? I've been wanting to learn it for a bit, but I've been kind of hesitant. Okay. I might have to take my headphones off to reach this, but let's see. Oh, maybe not. This is the book that I used to learn C initially. So this is, there it is. Sam's Teach Yourself C in 24 Hours, right? And it's not all that big of a book. It's been around for quite a while. It's by Tony Zhang. There's the name right there. But yeah, I've had this book for a long time. But yeah, I found this one to be pretty good. It's not like Teach Yourself C in a day unless you sit there for it's actually cumulative 24 hours, right? But I think it's a pretty good book. It's what I learned C from when I started with C. And then I just kind of Googled everything from there. Let's see. I would dive right in on a YouTube video or something and do the challenges, search for beginner projects to do in the language. That's what I did. Messed up a lot, but I learned it better. So that's sort of the next step, right? Like once you get the basics of the language down, write lots of programs. And then throw them out and write them again. And then throw them out and write them again. But yeah, I mean, the challenges are definitely a good way to do it. Like little things like tic-tac-toe or like make a text-based like menu-driven game or something like that in the console. And before you try to tackle something like graphics programming with it, make sure that you have a very strong grasp on the way that memory and pointers work, right? Because that's super, super important with C, that you understand how pointers work. If you don't, you're going to get stuck quickly and often. So yeah, definitely make sure you understand that. Dependency injection, i.e. a parameterized function. Well, a parameterized function really in this case is just a function pointer in this case. Like we don't have, I guess, true dependency injection, right? Like it's what we have for our renderer, for example, is we have the front end that calls into the back end. The way that back end is hooked up is we have a struct with a bunch of function pointers on it. And the Vulkan plugin, for example, when it initializes, it fills out a struct with all those function pointers to the Vulkan functions. And then it goes, hey, front end, here's all that stuff. And then it's connected from then on. "24 hours stretched over 24 weeks. Looks like such a big book. Will take me years to finish, especially because I can't seem to concentrate for more than 2 minutes on any book." I mean, if you want to talk big books, you can look at the one that I always refer to, which is Game Engine Architecture. This one is 2C thick, right? The Teach Yourself C is only one C thick. You know what? Actually, if we combine them, or if we compare them rather, like this is the C book, this is the game engine architecture book. If we count this as 1C of thickness, then technically the game engine architecture book looks like it's almost 3 C's thick. It's like 2.5 C's. Coffee lava, right? Lots of OOP and ECS. Oh, that's terrible. That's so evil. How are you doing, by the way, Coffee lava? Good to see you. Found an online version of it. Awesome. Usually pretty good at learning languages. I've learned Python, JavaScript, Rust, and C# pretty easily, but C is just confusing to me. C is a much simpler language than all of those. The only thing you have to consider is that, it doesn't come with as many, like, utility functions and stuff. There's a lot of stuff you have to roll on your own, like strings. But strings are nothing but a character array, right? So if you wrap your head around the way arrays and pointers work, you'll be fine. Ruche, thank you for the hi there. I think a great way of learning programming is making something with a fast visual response. And C, you can use raylib, for example. So I would say that's a good idea if you are to the point where you can actually use an API like that. I would say you probably don't want to jump to that until you have a good fundamental grasp on the language. But other than that, yeah. Why do they even write such big books? I would faint if I had to study that. It's really not that bad. I'll put it this way. I have dyslexia, which means that I generally have to read, like when I'm reading a book like that, I have to read stuff sometimes 2 to 3 times to fully understand it. And it didn't take me all that long to get through the book. The game engine books maybe like 72 hours max. Cumulative hours, yes. Again, not a 3-day read. Certainly not for me. Give me 2.5 C's of architecture stat. I love that. That's very funny. 72 hours to do what? Surely you mean sell, right? Right? Yeah. That's funny. Looks like. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's 72 hours of reading, probably, yeah. Or for me, probably triple that. Pro tip, you can look up resources on the Internet Archive. Plenty of good books that have been archived there if you want to read a bit before you buy a hard copy. That's also a really good tip. Yep. I would agree with that. Let's see. Oh, Apotham, you're over on the YouTube side now. It's been about 15 years or so since I've seen a Sam's Teach Yourself book. Yeah, and that's probably... What year is this book from? This is probably around that old, at least, I would say. Because I picked it up a long time ago. Oh god, it's even older than that. Any guesses as to what year that book is from? You'll probably be wrong. Because Vulkan is required... Wait a minute. Because Vulkan is required to RetroArch cores that are used to run in the game sim emulation inside games, but the Vulkan renderer is already in use and busy rendering the actual VR environment. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. You don't need to read the entire book to learn something. That is true. Read the parts that you're interested first, then what you need to know. I would agree with that, too. At some point, you're probably going to want to read it front to back, but, the first few chapters are probably going to get you where you want to be. Well, I don't know about that, actually, because it looks like chapter 11 is where they talk about pointers. So, yeah. But I think this book also assumes you don't really know too much about, like, types and basic things like that. So there probably are going to be parts you could skip. Yeah, my TV has a YouTube app, but no Twitch app. That makes sense. Yeah, so this book, by the way, this book is from 1997. I didn't think it was that old, but yeah. I haven't had it since 1997, but I've had it for a very long time. But I mean, C hasn't really changed all that much, right? So there are newer editions of it too. Um, that book is as old as you. Oh, geez. Yeah, we won't talk about how old I am. Yeah, it's a bit of an old. I mean, this particular version is old, but yeah, there's newer versions of it out there. I actually have another book here from I think that same year, which was like this old data structures book for C++, and I think this one is also from that same year. I want to say. Um, let's see, where is it? Should be 1998 for that one. I actually bought the game engine architecture book. Had a hard time figuring out how much to read to start. Did you read a chapter and then try to implement what you learned, or book is trying to run away from me? Let's see. Did you read a chapter and try to implement what you learned, or read up to a certain extent before doing a challenge? Making sure I don't fall back into tutorial hell. That makes sense. Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to get away from tutorial hell and start using things as references, right? Like at this point, I would not expect somebody to fully follow this entire series, video by video, writing every single line of code as I write it. But yeah, as far as the book is concerned, the first couple chapters are definitely good to read like sequentially. But then again, just kind of skip around to the parts you're interested in, because it covers everything, right? Why don't you try set last status equals 3? It's bothering me, sorry. I don't actually even know what that does. But I'll try it. Last status equals 3. Oops, equals 3. What did that actually do? I don't think I've ever used that before. I'm not sure what it did. K&R is a nice reference, but it's a bit terse at times. Modern C by Jen Gustet is relatively small, barely larger than K&R. If you want an academic text C programming language, if you want an academic text, C programming a modern approach by KN King is worth it. But it's as large as it's as large as a node module. That's huge. Unified the status bar. Oh, is it so you don't have okay. So we don't have different ones for each. Yeah, I suppose that's fine. Yeah. I was like, what did I even do? I knew it wasn't like anything huge, but hacked live. Yeah, let me just run bash scripts live that I have no idea what they do. Anyway, I should probably I like to look at C++ from the 90s. It feels like a completely different language to modern C++. Yes, 100%. In a better way in a lot of aspects. Creates one status line for the window. Yeah, which is actually a little bit better. There's no real need to have 2 status lines. So, yeah. I might wind up actually adding that to my Vim config. I read Modern C. It was informative, got pretty detailed on more esoteric parts of the language, but I thought a difficult resource to learn from. Not that K&R is great to learn from either. That was my opinion on it. First time chatter, welcome. First time viewer, your background both looks like a workshop bench and a desk at the same time. Yeah, so you're talking about this stuff back here. So what that is actually a bookshelf. Well, it's like wall-mounted shelves. So I have all kinds of like little knickknacks and stuff on it. I have all of my, I don't know if you guys, it's probably out of frame. You might be able to see it. On the top shelf is all the games that I've collected that I haven't actually gotten rid of. Um, which is like console games and PC games and a mix of all kinds of stuff. And then I have some like figurines that are here. I've got a whole case of figures. Let me point to the camera behind me here. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Maybe one of these days when I clean up my office, I'll do an office tour. But yeah, welcome by the way. All right, have you not felt the need to have a tab bar for open files? Like in, well, the editor that shall not be named, that we have to do that. Have you not felt the need to have a tab bar open for open files like in VS or others? A tab bar open for open files. You mean just like, I mean, I can do this and it gives me all the buffers I have open, which I have way too many buffers open at the moment. I have 132 open, but this is like all the stuff, so I can search like the stuff that I have open, and it's a fuzzy search. Like, to me, this is a lot faster than like looking through a tab bar, because the tab bar only has so many things and I tend to move in files all over the place. So yeah. Envy Chad has a tab bar. Telescope is king. Yeah, I agree. Like you can't. This is one of the best add-ons for sure. Way too many buffers. The tab bar would be useless like this. Exactly. Yep. Every once in a while, I'll kill all the other buffers. Like I could just do that, right? And then just reopen them as needed. And then when I open this, I only have the one. I use VS and I don't even use the file explorer half the time. Yeah, I wouldn't use that either. In fact, when I have to use that editor for something, it's painful for me to have to like select it out of the tree. I usually use what is it? Control P, I think, is the shortcut for that, and I search anyways. I have to admit, I read it to get what I needed. I need to check it out in full depth. That's fair. I learned STL and it can create 2D games with it. Do I need to learn OpenGL or Vulkan? Depends on whether you need. So depends on what your goals are, right? If you are able to accomplish what you need with STL's sort of renderer, then I would say no. But if you're wanting to do something that's more advanced than that and write shaders and more custom effects for it, then if you've never done graphics programming before, I would say probably start with OpenGL. But bear in mind, OpenGL is deprecated, right? So it's not always going to be around necessarily, or it'll always be around, but it'll be sort of in a deprecated state, right? So that means it's not going to get any new updates. It's not going to have any new features added to it. So you'll want to switch to Vulkan at some point, right? So start with OpenGL to kind of pick up the concepts, because it's a lot simpler to get up and running with that. And then switch to Vulkan later. But yeah, it's easy to use either with STL for sure. Once you get into this Vim and its environment, every other editor seems kind of inefficient. I agree. Yeah, I can't, like, when I have to switch to the other one, which the only thing I actually use this for now is a UI-based debugger. That's the only thing I actually use this for. But yeah, so you're talking about this tab bar, but like this to me sucks. I'd much rather, search for it here this way, which is basically what Telescope gives you anyways. Or yank buffers, I guess. Yeah, exactly. The only thing about Telescope is it pollutes your clipboard history though. Does it? Maybe that's the problem I've run into on occasion with weird pastes. Maybe that's the issue, because every once in a while I'll go to paste something and I'm like, where did that come from? He means the file tree? I thought he meant the tab bar as in like this thing. If he's talking about this, I mean, I have one of those in NeoVim if I need it too, but I would never open files with this thing. This is terrible. Yeah, it's much better to just Control P and type what file you're looking for. But yeah, if you need that in NeoVim, there's nvim tree. I think we'll kind of give you that functionality if you need it. Shifty-eyed Sublime user happily loved long time over here. No tabs, telescope built in. Vim bindings built in. Cough cough. I'll see myself out. Oh, Spiro. Spiro. By the way, speaking of Spiro, if you guys don't know who Spiro is, there's a shout out. He's a GigaChad developer here on Twitch, and he's always doing really, really cool stuff over on his channel. He's got a game that he's building using Zig, although I think he's rewriting that in Odin now, if I remember correctly. But he's leveraging WASM, and then he's using the DOM, the HTML DOM, as his renderer, because why not, right? You shill Sublime and get a shout out? Yeah, no, that's not why I'm giving you a shout out. I'm giving you a shout out because you're a GigaChad. Ultimately, the tool that you use doesn't matter. If you're comfortable with it, use it, right? The only reason that I bleep out VS is because this is a family-friendly stream and I can't be cursing like that on stream, you know, so we have to keep things, you know, family-friendly here. So I can't be using, you know, vulgar terms like VS. So. All right. Canadian geezer with a Mario obsession. That's funny. I use nvim dap, but you don't need a debugger for vim or nvim. You can use packadd term debug and then run term debug ch. Yeah. So I have tried those and I didn't like them. Nvim dap gave me flat out wrong results a few times. And like failed to pull up symbols. Now, I say that, but this has also done some weird stuff debugging on occasion, and I've had to relaunch it. So nothing is perfect, but it is a lot faster with this one to just kind of click into the debugger and just bam, have stuff right there. You know, so this is, unfortunately, this is the best cross-platform debugger that there is out there, right? It works on Windows, Linux, and Mac, and I can use the same relative configuration on all three, which is why I keep this around. But I don't code in this. Valhalla would be a great name for an Odin project. Got to do that sometime. Yeah, that is a great name, actually. All right. So here is where I'm at tonight. We made some progress, right? We did a lot of chatting tonight, actually, which is fine. I enjoy that. It just means I'll probably need to get a little bit more done offline. But we are like a few minutes away from my normal ending time, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and wrap up for tonight. But we actually did get some stuff figured out, right? How we're actually going to handle the multi-textures of this situation here. So we'll have to add these other maps. We'll have to get the listener stuff all straightened out and all of that up and running, and then the texture combination. So I'll get as much of that done as I can offline, and then we'll kind of go over it next time. I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy. I think it's just going to be something that it can be like, oh yeah, by the way, I just did this, this, and this, and then that's going to be the end of it. Supports .NetViz for debugger custom visualization. Megatz, I'll have to ask you offline what that means, because I don't know. But I would be interested to know what you mean. Yeah, there's a particular lack of cross-platform visual debuggers, and it's really annoying. Like, this is the only one that's out there that's worth a crap, right? Because some of them are Windows only, some of them are Linux only, and this is the only one out there that actually kind of works. It doesn't work well. It's not quick, but it does work. Formatting data. Gotcha. All right. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up for tonight. I do want to say thank you to everybody that joined here, and I appreciate chatting with you guys. I appreciate the follows, the subscriptions, all that stuff. Very much appreciated. If you guys haven't followed me yet, either on the YouTube side or the Twitch side or both, I really very much appreciate those follows. Those counts help me boost visibility of the channel. I'm trying to grow the channel, and I'm trying to reach more people to hopefully convince more people to get interested in game engine development, because we need more competition in this space. There's not a lot out there, and I think more competition drives more innovation. So the more people that we get motivated to do this, the better, I think. So that's the whole goal here. So yeah, any extra word of mouth or any of that kind of stuff helps me out a great deal. All right. Budget gem. I appreciate the very large D's nuts emote there. That's very funny. Let's see. I'll just catch up on a few chats here before we go. Hopefully next week we'll have allocators fully implemented and can move on to more fruitful endeavors. Everyone be safe if you're in the path of the storm, which we kind of inadvertently are like off to the side, but like the east side of it. So yeah, thank you guys for being here, and let's choose somebody to raid. Let me make sure I'm not going to hit ads really fast. Doesn't look like it. Okay. So see if we can't find somebody that's doing something relatively related to what we're doing. Let's see. I'm just kind of scrolling through the list really quickly just to see if I can find somebody we haven't rated before that's doing something kind of... Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. We never get to raid. Oh, he just went offline. Dang it. Okay. Almost had one, but he just went offline. Hate when that happens. All right, let's keep looking. I hope he didn't raid this channel. Let me just make sure that didn't happen. Okay. If you guys have any suggestions, by the way, feel free to... Yeah, it is pretty... I'm the top streamer by viewers in the software channel? Wow. I did not think I'd ever live to see the day that happened. Okay. Yeah, it is pretty... it must be really quiet then if that's the case. Let me narrow this down a little bit, maybe. Why does it keep suggesting channels to me that are offline? Twitch, what are you doing? That's the second time. If you weren't on dad duty, you'd be on. Yeah, Spiro, if you were to like start up a stream, I'd just raid your channel, honestly. All right. I guess we'll pick something that is game dev related. It might not necessarily be programming, but we'll see. Um, hmm. And half of the things that are under software and game development are playing games, which is like change the category. Hmm. Okay. I guess what I will do is, since there's nobody that I haven't rated before, um, all right, here's somebody that we haven't rated before, actually. I don't know. Somebody's making a Celeste clone. So let's raid them. And we'll ask them about their game. And yeah, so thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I guess we'll catch you guys on the next stream as soon as the button actually shows up for me to raid. I think Twitch is just like broken tonight. The UI is just terribly broken. Like it's not even letting me raid now. Did it actually go through? It didn't even go through. Okay, let me try refreshing it. Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry. Let's try this again. The buttons never worked for you? It works for me like every time, usually, but tonight, apparently not. Now I gotta search for them. Here we go. Okay. Oh, it says it's already rating. So I don't know if that means it's going to click through or not. Do you guys see a raid countdown? You just run out the timer. Apparently the timer's already running because it says I'm already rating them. So maybe at some point it'll just kick over. Oh, I guess it did kick. Okay, I guess it did click over. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.